So good to have you join us today. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. Coming up on today's edition of Business Daily. Korea's central bank says elevated household debt could restrain private consumption amid rising borrowing costs. As U.S. President Donald Trump and China's President Xi Jinping meet on Thursday for the first time, eyes are on what the two leaders may discuss in regards to global trade amid growing protectionist sentiment worldwide. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. A new report shows that Korea's ever-growing household debt may be squeezing already stagnant domestic spending. Debt growth levels are especially alarming when compared to some other major economies. Our Shin Se-min has this report.
Korea's ratio of household debt to GDP is seen as far outstripping that of the OECD average. In a Bank of Korea report submitted to the Parliament's Special Committee on the Domestic Economy Thursday, data shows the country's household debt to nominal GDP was at 91% as of the end of 2015, over 20 percentage points higher than the OECD average. That puts Korea at the 7th highest, with Denmark and Switzerland leading the pack. In terms of the country's household debt to disposable income rate, it was at 169%, nearly 40 percentage points higher than the OECD average. The report says that ratio had sharply gone up by over 21 percentage points since 2010, while the OECD average had dropped by half a percentage point. This is also in stark contrast to the world's major economies like the US and the UK that had also seen their ratios fall in that same period by nearly 23 and 12 percentage points, respectively. Korea's household debt rose by $124 billion alone last year, adding to concerns about its alarming pace of growth. Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol openly voiced his concern about the mounting debt pile, saying given the high levels, it is already likely constricting private consumption. Shin Se-min, Business Daily.
A fresh report out of Korea Trade Promotion Agency shows that expectations for trade with China is heading southbound on THAAD retaliation fears. KOTRA had surveyed some 2,200 overseas buyers and its on-the-ground managers to arrive at its leading export index for the second quarter. The index for China came in at 52, down more than 8 points from the first quarter, but still above the 50-point cutoff, which divides growth forecasts from a contraction. KOTRA attributed the fall to fears among Chinese buyers about purchasing Korean products. Meanwhile, sentiment for trade to the U.S. jumped 9 points to hit 67, despite the Trump administration's protectionist stance. The bump up was credited to improving fundamentals, including an improving job market and consumer sentiment in the world's largest economy. The number of Chinese tourists to Korea dropped nearly 40% last month compared to last year after Beijing banned tour packages to the country amid the ongoing diplomatic row over the THAAD anti-missile defense system. During the first 19 days of March, Chinese visitors dropped by 22% on year. But after Beijing implemented the ban in the middle of the month, the figure almost doubled within just 10 days to mark a staggering 39% on-year drop. However, Seoul's tourism ministry said thanks to more visitors from Japan, Taiwan, and Southeast Asian nations, the overall number of foreign tourists rose more than 3% on-year in the first quarter. Korea's rapidly aging population has been spurring a host of problems, which are likely to have much larger implications for the economy as a whole. Our Lee Ju-young has more.
It was just about 20 years ago that Korea was intent on population control, offering young couples who undergo birth control procedures the fast track to public housing, while excluding men from annual military training if they received a vasectomy. But in the space of a generation, a lot has changed. With Korea's population aging rapidly and the workforce shrinking, Korea Institute for International Economic Policy says if this situation intensifies, the country's gross domestic product is likely to drop by about 3.3% come 2020. But what's more, if the proportion of older people keeps increasing in other countries like the US, Japan, and China as well, given Korea's economic dependence, the nation's GDP is set to decline even further by roughly 4.4%. The Bank of Korea also agrees that the rapidly growing population is one of the greatest threats to the local economy. The central bank says if the ratio of people who can engage in production falls by 1 percentage point, then by 2020, consumer price growth will fall by roughly 0.06 percentage points. So how likely are the chances of this becoming reality? With the proportion of the elderly set to reach as high as 40% in 2050, the BOK says proper measures need to be put in place as soon as possible to prevent a vicious cycle of slowing production and shrinking demand. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
Korea's largest automakers, Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors, have seen their combined global sales of eco-friendly cars surpass the 500,000 mark. The automakers say the milestone was reached in March. It comes just 8 years after the automakers launched their first green car back in July 2009. Of the total, around 300,000 were sold overseas and the remaining 200,000 here in Korea. Hyundai Motor plans to launch its new Grandeur hybrid this week and hopes to sell more than 10,000 units of the vehicles a year in the domestic market. All eyes are on the upcoming meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday and Friday over in Florida. And this meeting is expected to set the tone for one of the world's most important and influential bilateral relationships. Take a look.
When U.S. President Donald Trump hosts Chinese President Xi Jinping at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida on Thursday and Friday, the two are expected to talk a lot about trade, jobs, and North Korea. Ahead of the meeting, Trump had set the stage for a major confrontation over trade by posting on his Twitter feed that discussions would be quote-unquote very difficult. In fact, during his presidential campaign last year, Trump accused China of, quote, raping the U.S., and he even threatened to pose a 45% tariff on Chinese imports. With all this under their belts, eyes are on whether the two leaders will be able to come up with any major agreements on trade, and whether China would be willing to grant Trump some minor economic concessions. What impact will their meeting have on the global economy as well as Korea?
And to tell us more about this, we have Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joining us in the studio today. Great to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so as President, Trump has kept his tough stance on bilateral trade relations between the U.S. and China, saying that China is responsible for the loss of jobs in America. So what kind of discussions do you think will take place in regards to this?
Well, China's unfair trade practices and its result of huge trade surplus to U.S. will be given top priority on the meeting's agenda. Actually, China's trade surplus to U.S. exceeded $350 billion, which is 5 times larger than that of Japan's.
Wow.
So U.S. government has been accusing China of unfair trade practices from President Obama's administration. So it is economically and politically very important to Mr. Trump to decrease China's trade surplus to the United States. So there will be some answers from China this time.
Now, going along with that, there are expectations that the U.S. might include China on its list of currency manipulators in a bid to lower the trade deficit with China. So what kind of reaction has China had to this so far?
Well, designating China as a currency manipulator means there will be financial punishment from United States. That also means that China's financial market and currency market are controlled by Chinese government. So last year, Chinese government has taken some actions to show off their market's liberalization. For example, they let short-term interest rate to increase by the force of the market, and they let Chinese yuan to appreciate further. And they opened the domestic bonds market and mutual funds market to foreign investors.
Now, there are also expectations that the U.S. may recognize China's market economy status, or MES, during the summit. Tell us more about this.
Well, market economy status is something recognized and gained from trading partners. So if U.S. accepts China as a market economy status, that means U.S. can impose a higher tariffs on China's export to the United States. So Actually, when China joined the WTO, World Trade Organization, in 2001, they were supposed to gain market economy status from all member countries. So far they gained that MSE from 70
MES
from 70 countries, including Korea, in 2005, actually. But only 3 countries, US, Japan, and EU member countries, did not give MES to China so far.
Why so?
Because they believe that there is something inter-contradiction in Chinese government's behavior, because Chinese government says they are protector of the free trade. But on the other side, their trade practices is something unfair. So that's going to be something not understood by these advanced countries.
So how significant would it be for China in gaining this MES from the U.S.?
Actually, the possibility that U.S. is giving MES to China is very low, because the tariffs is only working trade policy to China. So U.S. wants to keep non-MES status of the China until now. Yes.
All right. Well, the 2 leaders are also expected to discuss North Korea's nuclear program, which is also may lead to some talks over the U.S. missile defense system, THAAD, on the Korean Peninsula. So what can we expect on this front?
Well, I believe that there is a possibility that Mr. Trump will persuade Mr. Xi to discontinue China's economic retaliation on Korea over that deployment. But it looks like that U.S. Congress is pretty much interested in this issue. The day before yesterday, actually, 26 members of Senate sent a letter to Mr. Trump that says they are very concerned about China's economic retaliation on Korea. So because these people are very influential people in U.S. Diplomatic policies, that's going to be a big pressure to Mr. Trump. So I think he will try to persuade Mr. Xi not to do it.
All right. Well, what can Korea then do to prepare for whatever may come out of this critical meeting between 2 world powers?
Well, the 2 summits meeting is a critical test for seeing the future developments of the economy and geopolitical tensions around Korean Peninsula. So whatever agreed and discussed between the 2 summits, the same will be applied to Korea's huge export to United States and Korean currency problems. So it is important to realize what is the difference between Chinese economy and Korean economy to defend our status.
All right, we'll definitely keep our eyes on the meeting and what comes out of the meeting. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
Many retirees lacking a specific skill often turn to starting a franchise restaurant or outlet to keep a regular income. But now they might want to consider this Fair Trade Commission report, which shows closure of such eateries reached an all-time high in 2015. Our Eunice Kim has more.
It's hard not to notice the franchise establishments that seem to spring up like bamboo shoots around the city. From coffee shops to kimbap stops to fried chicken houses, these are businesses that require relatively low capital and little skill to get started. As such, competition and risk are both high. In a recent analysis of franchises by the Fair Trade Commission, it found that more than 13,000 had closed up shop in 2015. Compared to a year before, that's an increase of nearly 20% and an average of 36 such eateries closing every day. By franchise type, Korean food and chicken outlets led, each taking a hit of some 2,800 small businesses that failed to endure in 2015. They were followed by bars, street food stops, and coffee shops. More than 1,000 of each called it quits. This confirms concerns that many jobless individuals are falling victim to the pressures of an oversaturated service market. While they are centered around retirees, many of whom were forced out of a job early due to restructuring efforts, they also include young people who never managed to enter the job market in earnest. Experts say to survive in the fiercely competitive sector, people should prepare thoroughly in advance, including exhaustive market research. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
The price of eggs looks to be jumping again as imports from the U.S. are blocked and the school year started here in Korea. Egg prices had been on a stabilizing trend after the Lunar New Year holidays, but according to Korea Agro-Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation, it began climbing again in mid-March. It said some smaller supermarkets were selling a tray of 30 eggs for more than 7,500 won, or about $6.62 US cents, which is $1.76 higher than a year before. Industry watchers attributed this to more robust demand as schools here in Korea began their lunch programs in March. They say the cost of eggs likely won't reach normal levels soon, as suspected cases of the bird flu continue to be reported. Farms in Korea were forced to cull more than 30 million birds to stop the spread of the worst bird flu outbreak in the country. After a long day of work, many people here in Korea head out to eat fried chicken to relieve stress. Now, the industry has gone through some difficult times in the recent months, but it still tops the list when it comes to eating out. So with that, here's a look at the unique economics behind the country's fried chicken industry.
The prolonged bird flu outbreak, along with the latest scandal involving tainted poultry meat from Brazil, has taken a hit on Korea's chicken industry so far this year. Adding to this, a major local fried chicken franchise company had pushed to raise prices. But the opposition to this move was stronger than expected. In the end, the government stepped in to block the proposed price hikes. So why the strong reaction from the Korean public? It likely has to do with the popularity of fried chicken as an affordable option for dining out.
I have memories of my father bringing chicken home after work, so it's like a comfort food.
Fried chicken is a must-have food for any occasion, whether you're happy or sad, with friends or out having a good time. It's that intertwined with our daily lives.
There are over 40,000 fried chicken joints across the country, outstripping the number of McDonald's stores worldwide. Not only that, Koreans ate a whopping 800 million chickens last year. That means one adult consumed roughly 20 chickens a year.
It's easy to eat and delicious too, so it's great.
Fried chicken is the most popular when eating out with a group of people, and it's great with beer.
On special occasions like watching big sports games, or even on days of major political events, fried chicken has been the obvious choice for many. On the day former Korean President Park Geun-hye was impeached by the Constitutional Court, credit card transactions at chicken joints jumped by more than half.
We sell around 150 to 200 chickens per day. It gets especially busy during big sports games or national events, as well as on the weekends.
The word chicken to most Koreans now means a fried chicken. The bird was most commonly boiled or steamed for meals in the past, but after the Korean War, people were gradually introduced to the fried dish. Fried chicken started to take off in the 1970s when people widely started to use cooking oil. After that, the dish took another step forward with the addition of spicy chili paste sauce. And with the 2002 World Cup, the so-called chimek culture, combining fried chicken with beer, put its roots down. Eating fried chicken is not just a simple, fun way to eat out, but also a unique culture. With the latest trends in Hallyu, foreigners have come to learn more about this. And now, enjoying chimek has become part of people's must-do lists when they visit Korea. Many Korean fried chicken franchises have already branched out abroad. one of the leading companies has established 500 branches in 57 countries. But it's not all good news. Too many chicken joints are now in competition, and many of them end up failing.
There are too many franchises in the country. Chicken joints are at the top of the list when it comes to self-run businesses after retirement. Numbers keep growing.
In order to overcome this, the industry is constantly evolving. New types of menus are emerging, incorporating other ingredients like octopus or scorched crispy rice. With changing consumer patterns, more and more fried chicken restaurants are also targeting single-person households.
It's convenient that I can eat here alone, and the place is easy to find, so I come pretty often.
The fried chicken market has shown consistent growth, and it looks like there will be further developments. There are more single-person households, and there's a whole delivery culture here in Korea.
Fried chicken is now considered a comfort food for many Koreans. And it remains to be seen how the industry overcomes current challenges to increase its popularity around the world.
With mass production and the proliferation of agribusinesses, heirloom seeds, those that are indigenous to a country's soil, untouched by genetic modification, are being lost as we speak, which is why reviving and preserving them is so crucial. And our Woo Soo-young turns the spotlight on some of the efforts being made here in Korea.
You might get your fruit and vegetables crisply packaged and presentable from a local shop or a mega supermarket from halfway across the world. But a growing number of Koreans are choosing to take fresh local produce out of a library. With more than 140 seeds native to Korean soil, a seed library in Suwon allows farmers and area residents to grow their own plants and organic produce, from grains and herbs to fruits and vegetables.
Lately, there has been growing interest among the public in preserving heirloom seeds as they are becoming more rare. So this library was set up in the interest of preservation. We explain how to grow the seeds and help with technical difficulties.
The seeds can be grown at home or on a plot of land provided by the local government to encourage more homegrown produce. And like any good book, each seed comes with a unique story of its own.
These are yellow lettuces. They retain their beautiful glow as they grow. They're soft and taste wonderful. I got this from an elderly woman in Ponghwa, where we stayed 3 months to look for native seeds. She had received them from her late mother-in-law, who presumably got them from generations back.
In fact, some seeds are believed to date back thousands of years.
당분 신화에 마늘 나오듯이 아마 이제 마늘이 아마 달래나 이런 종류의 이제 마늘이 아니었을까 그렇게 좀 생각을 하고 있어요.
그러면 이게 맛도 다른가요?
기존 마늘하고 비슷한데 향이 좀 독특하고요. 매운맛도 그렇게 강하게 맵지 않아요. 단맛이 강하고 이게 이제 이 토종 귀한 마늘의 이제 특징입니다. 환경 영역이 굉장히 강하고 이렇게 뭐 약이라든지 이런 거 안 쳐도 깨끗하게 자라는 그런 게 이 토종 작물들의 이제 특징이죠.
However, these seeds and their age-old heritage are in danger of dying out. With the rise of agribusiness and the mass production of crops, most farmers have been swayed by big yields generated by imported seeds. An-Sik, a research veteran, has been at the forefront of saving heirloom seeds for the last 30 years.
About 95% of the crops produced in Korea now depend on imports of genetically modified seeds that are sterilized for one-time use, meaning that farmers must buy them again every year with no control over what they produce. So our food sovereignty is in the hands of big agricultural corporations.
Anne has collected roughly 20,000 native seeds over the years, which she has distributed throughout the country, setting up seed cooperatives and academies to promote their use.
They're our greatest genetic asset, treasures, passed down by our ancestors. You can't find them anywhere else on Earth. Having weathered the changes in climate for 4,000 years, they're genetically equipped to survive any further changes or food shortages brought about by climate change through organic farming methods.
Experts say seeds must also be preserved in the interest of protecting biodiversity. So Korean researchers are extending their efforts to collect and store them for use in research and development.
We don't know what kinds of crops may be needed or in demand in the future, which is why we must protect the diversity of indigenous crops. We need these genetics as the basis for research and development. Without them, there is no other source. The same goes for other countries. So we offer preservation services free of charge. We hope that in the future, this will lead to collaborative research and other efforts.
Thousands of generations all contained within one seed. There are growing efforts in Korea to protect the country's homegrown produce, which is more than just food on the table. It is vital to procuring a sustainable future for generations to come. Oh Soo-young, Business Daily.
And that wraps it up for today, but we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. So don't forget to check back with us then. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.